happens under the cover of darkness after high tide on this day around 3 a.m. Using nets like these or dip nets, fishermen catch baby eels, also known as elvers or glass eels.
There's probably 5 pounds there.
Oh yeah.
So how does this compare to what you usually get?
Oh, this is pretty good evening right here. This is a good run.
We've come across the U.S. border to Maine, but this is the way elver fishing looks in Canada too, when the fishery has not been shut down, that is.
I got everybody in handcuffs.
The Canadian elver fishery is so out of control, the federal government has closed it amidst concerns of overfishing, organized crime, even death threats. Both countries ship live to Asia, where eels are eaten and in high demand. Last year, they were worth nearly $5,000 a kilogram. Lobster, by comparison, is worth around $15. Now, in Canada, 1,100 people are out of work.
Hopefully they'll get it cleaned up. I mean, it happened here too in 2012 and 13. And we got it summed up, so I think you guys can do it too.
Maine began making changes to how its elver fishery is regulated back in 2012. Then, over a period of years, it significantly increased fines, suspended licenses for the first offense, revoked them permanently for the second offense, and instead of a civil infraction, made elver violations a crime.
Here's my fob key.
When it's time to sell his eels, Daryl Young uses his fob to enter his elvers into the system.
So they knew who caught them, where they caught them, and how much they got. And that took care of the poaching.
The state also banned cash transactions because there was just so much of it changing hands right on the rivers.
Banks were running out of money in eastern Maine, literally running out of money. That was a dangerous situation. I mean, my officers were walking up to harvesters and dealers, and everyone was carrying guns. I mean, everyone.
Maine also now tightly controls the export of elvers. Marine patrol officers come to a facility like this one, weigh the eels, and seal them with a tamper-proof seal. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service then inspects the containers before they leave the country.
Since we've put that system in place, not one shipment has been tampered with.
In Canada, there is no federal oversight or monitoring of the elver supply chain from harvest to export.
DFO from the Maritime region came down with policymakers, with some of their enforcement folks.
When?
It was this year.
Was that the first time you ever heard from them?
Yeah.
The Department of Fisheries and Oceans says it has launched a comprehensive review of the fishery.
I think it's going pretty well.
Maine has also carved out 22% of its overall quota for its Indigenous people. Here on the Penobscot Nation, the Director of Natural Resources says members of his community believe they should have more, but they don't participate in unauthorized fishing.
We don't have any issues going over on the quota. We've been, respectful of that.
Canada has also set aside part of its overall quota for Indigenous communities, but some say they have a treaty right to fish for a moderate livelihood without a license from DFO and in spite of the fishery being closed. DFO says anyone caught with elvers now that the fishery is closed is subject to enforcement. Fisheries officers have arrested more than 100 people in the last 2 months.
Somehow they're getting that product out of the country, which is really unfortunate, because that black market eel that's being caught in Canada is affecting the price for the legal fishermen that are here in Maine.
Once they started doing that, they didn't want to buy our eels at $2,000 a pound. They wanted to buy their eels at $300, $400, $500 a pound, whatever they were selling them for.
Frustration with Canada, and both Maine fishers and authorities insist they have the blueprint when it comes to how to run a smooth elver fishery, and they're willing to share it with their neighbors to the north.